I hate putting together a project like this and having the rear just turn into a junk drawer. And that's exactly what happened last week whenever we were filming the ONX build competition. And that video will be available on ONX's YouTube channel very soon. But for now, I'm going to continue to work on this thing. I really enjoyed using the landcruiser. It's got its pros and cons for sure. But one of the things that was very easy to take care of is building out a rear storage compartment slash sleeping platform. I want to make this super simple in order to keep things super light, and I want to make sure that I have enough space for a fridge and a spare tire. So we're going to do a lot with a little and try to keep this a very functional off-roader while improving its ability to be organized and camp quick. It's really important to me to keep this platform as light as possible, and I'm going to use two techniques to accomplish this. One, we're just going to build it with less wood. So I'm going to make this a solo style, like a cot basically made out of wood. I'm not going to use any drawers because it's just going to be extra wood, extra material. So I'm going to build it in a way that we can use the smallest amount of wood. We're going to just store like soft bags underneath it. And we're gonna make it simple to make it light. The second technique is gonna be just buying the lightest wood that I can find locally. Now, if you have the patience and you don't mind waiting and you can pay the shipping costs, you can go online and you can find some extremely lightweight wood. But this 4x8 sheet of plywood that I'm using here, that I'm trimming down, it's 1/2 inch thick, and it's the lightest sheet that I could find at Home Depot locally. So I don't remember the exact type of wood, unfortunately, but when I went around Home Depot, I was just looking up the weights per square foot, and this one was the lightest, so this is what I bought. My final fitment check showed that I was way too close to this compressor. I definitely didn't think it was going to butt right up into it, but no big deal. We'll pull it back out, and this is something that can easily be remedied. All right, let's take a look. We got the fridge. Everything's powered up. It's cooling as we speak. Real easy to get to. I don't need a fridge slide or anything. I'm just going to strap the front and back of it down so it doesn't go anywhere. And then if we need to set up camp, just toss a pillow up here. Boom. As you can see, this is deep. We've got a lot of storage in here. My strategy was going to be just keep all of like the soft goods back here, lightweight, clothes, pillows, blankets, a towel, that kind of stuff will go back here. And then the heavier stuff, I always like to place a lot farther forward in the vehicle, so I'll have some water on this side and on the other side. And then, whatever, tools, whatever I need that's heavy can stay up here. Now, as far as getting in there, let's give it a shot. not bad. I imagine on the camera it looks extremely cramped. That's about where I'll be right there. It's really not bad. If you ever slept in a bivvy, or if you slept in like a small rooftop tent, they kind of feel like a coffin anyway, and I'd say this is at least equivalent to that. This is definitely not luxury. But it's super fast and super practical, which I like when it comes to making something that's a rock crawler that can also camp really easy out of. My feet are like right on the seatbelt bar. I mean, usually I'm a side sleeper. I'm a little bit bent, so I'm usually like this. But, you know, if I really wanted to, I could change the contour of the bar or something. We'll see. I need to go use it a bunch and figure out exactly what I like and don't like about this setup. But right now, we're just experimenting. Now, the cool thing is, this was made to carry 7 people. And for that reason, the back has an inside latch to open and close, which is nice because a lot of vehicles don't have that. But because this was made to have people sit in this back row, that's in here, which is kind of cool. I don't know, what do you think? Let me know in the comments.
At last, the legend goes turbo. Because you never know when you'll need LandCruiser Turbo Power. Direct injection makes it the most powerful vehicle in its class. The power, the performance, and the handling that puts you in control.
Direct injection turbo? What a charge!
Turbo Power.
When it comes to a multi-purpose wheeler like this LandCruiser, hydro assist steering is a must. And there's a few different ways we could do this. I usually build my systems from scratch, so I'll measure the throw of the steering arm, and then I'll just order a ram to match. In this case, it's 10 inches, which is a lot longer than normal. And usually you would use an 1.5 inch diameter ram, but I decided to order a 1-inch ram because I'm gonna play around with ram sizes in this build. We're gonna start with the 1-inch ram. Now, the smaller diameter ram that you use, the less power it's gonna have to turn the tires, but we're adding a ram still. This is definitely still going to give us more power and more durability than just a stock steering box. But I want to experiment with steering speeds, so I'm going to build this in a way that I could easily swap out this 1-inch diameter ram for an 1.5 inch later on, but I'm hoping that I can make the 1-inch work. I don't want to have a ram so powerful that it's easy for it to shear our steering studs, because this is just like a very factory knuckle setup. And I want to retain that factory speed. A lot of times when you add hydro assist, you will notice that it'll turn one direction just like stock speed, and then if you have to reverse back the other direction really quickly, you'll start to feel that pump running out of juice, and it needs to catch up to fill that extra volume of the cylinder. So we're gonna experiment a little bit here, and I'm gonna just, you'll learn along with me if a 1-inch ram is gonna be practical for a truck like this. On paper, you don't need to do this step, but I like to add grease fittings where I think that it's a good idea. And in this instance, I think that having a spot to, you know, squirt some marine grease into an extremely cheap, non-replaceable joint it's time well spent. You know, this is gonna be 5 or 10 extra minutes on the install, and now forever I can pump some marine grease into this thing to help keep the dirt and debris out of it, to help lengthen the life of these joints. By the way, I did run a very inexpensive surplus ram for, what was it, like 10 or 12 years with non-replaceable joints like this, and the joints never failed or fatigued. And I think that it's because I added a grease zerk and was able to pump it full of grease and extend the life of those very cheap nylon races. I designed this bracket in the way that I did to make it one big rigid unit. If you have any deflection in a bracket like this, it's going to slowly work stress fractures around your welds, and then it's going to eventually come off. Whereas in this case, if it's going to come off, it's going to have to overcome all the weld at once, the whole bracket at once. It won't be able to just slowly wiggle and over time work stress fractures around the welds. In my opinion, this is the strongest way to create a bracket like this that is connected to steering, which will constantly be under pressure to wiggle. So if we can reduce that wiggle at all, then it's time well spent as far as like welding these tubes in here to make this bracket beat. I decided to buy a new steering box that's already drilled and tapped instead of, well, a remanufactured steering box that's already drilled and tapped for Hydro Assist instead of doing it myself. I have drilled and tapped my own boxes before. It's honestly not that big of a deal. The problem is it's extremely time consuming and time is not on my side. I have got a giant build that I have to do before SEMA this year, and so I need to get this landcruiser done and out of my shop. So in order to save the day of steering box rebuild and drilling and tapping, I just bought a new box. We'll send this one back as a core, and it'll make this process much faster. Before I mount the steering box, I want to build some sort of a brace behind it on the frame, and it is surprising to me that these crack because of the way it's designed. It's got cross bracing to the other side of the frame, but in any case, this did have cracks. I inspected it once I got everything cleaned up. And so I welded the cracks up. We built a big 1/4 inch heavy duty base plate to go behind the steering box. And then I tied that into a really big 3/8 inch thick gusset that's going to go to the track bar mount itself. I'm so glad the competition's over. I mean, the video hasn't come out yet for the competition, but as far as I'm concerned, it's over. So I can mount cool stuff and not worry about budget. So I got this this rack from Sherpa. They sent me a rack for my Tacoma, and when they asked if I wanted one for the landcruiser, I was like, hell yeah. I think the racks look awesome. They're super lightweight, which are two things that are very important to me. And it went together quick. My wife and I were able to throw it together in like an hour, and I think it really helped spruce up the look of the landcruiser. Makes it look a little bit more complete. So now I've got like a gazelle gazebo and some stuff that I can throw on the roof rack and not have to figure out how to get it inside of there. Back to steering. All of our paint is cured. The box is braced, so now I just need to mount the box. I'm going to measure for some hydraulic lines, go get them cut, and then we can fit everything up, bleed it, and go hit the trails. A couple of friends and I headed up for a one-nighter at Evans Creek, and this is the perfect time to test out all this new stuff that we're doing to the landcruiser. And on the pros, I love how much easier it is to organize things whenever I can stack it like this. I love the fact that on the outside, it just looks like a landcruiser. You'd have no idea someone's sleeping in there. So I'm going to figure out a way to like cover up the windows and stuff. So if I'm doing like a cross-country trip in this thing, I mean, I could sleep in, rest areas and stuff. And again, on the outside, it just looks like a parked car, which I really like. It doesn't fit all of the shapes of all of my gear yet, so that's some things that I'm gonna have to work through. But the next morning, it rained a little bit overnight, and I just woke up in a landcruiser. I didn't have to fold up a wet tent, anything like that. And I really value the ability to just sleep in a vehicle. This has got the wheels turning for some future builds of mine. Now, as far as the steering, it's time to go test it out and see how everything performs. The steering feels so good. It's like, before it felt like anything that doesn't have Hydro Assist, right? Whenever you would go over terrain, you'd hit bumps and stuff, you could feel that feedback in the wheel here and there. And this is just buttery smooth, just like my TJ was. But on the highway, I don't feel like it runs out of juice at all. So like I can steer back and forth really fast, and it feels exactly like it did stock. In fact, it's actually better on the highway because it's a Hydro Assist RAM is like the ultimate steering stabilizer. It feels so nice. And right now, I mean, we're on air down 39s, we're climbing, we're having fun, and I don't have to push or force this wheel at all. It just steers amazing. Oh, sorry about that little radio chatter. Now, we're on air down 39s, but we're in the dirt. And the reality is, like, how powerful is this when you're all bound up? I don't know yet. We need to rock crawl. If we find some rocks today, then we'll crawl and see how it feels. But my opinion is, with these stock steering knuckles and stock steering arms that are bolted to the knuckles, I know that people do shear the studs, and the more powerful the ram, the odds go up that we're going to shear the studs. So I'm really hoping that this small ram ends up being practical for this project, but only time will tell. If I need to swap it out to an 1.5 inch ram instead of 1 inch, not that big of a deal at all. But right now, fingers crossed, I think that we're going to be able to make this one work. We're just got to keep testing to find out. For those of you that are not from Western Washington, Evans Creek it's just not hard wheeling. At the end of the day, this is very easy trails. They're fun trails, and it's precision wheeling, and that's why I figured this would be the perfect place to come and test out this steering system. The steering box has made this extremely precise. There is like no play, no slop, and then that ram really helped to just give us a little bit of extra oomph and make it to where we can do some precision wheeling. If you want to keep your body off of the trees, off of the roots, off of the rocks in a place like Evans Creek, you have got to have powerful enough steering to be able to steer you up and out of the stuff that you're falling into. This is a very eroded place. There's deep holes everywhere, and you're usually climbing up or down. So this is, in my opinion, the perfect place to test out this new gear. Evans Creek was the very first like official off-road park I ever wheeled at back in 2004. Before that, it was me and my friends being hooligans, like, you know, driving in places in town that we weren't supposed to be going off-road. And after I went to this place for the first time, I was hooked. Now, we lost interest in this place after a few years because in TJs, YJs, Samurais, just small-bodied vehicles, this place is just way too easy. But I found that using the landcruiser, a little bit bigger-bodied rig, in a place like this was actually really fun. There was a lot of challenge involved with some of the areas that get really, really tight, and I was so thankful that I had the extra boost of steering, because I think that, you know, if I would have came here without Hydro Assist, this would have been so much more difficult because I wouldn't have been able to steer the vehicle where I needed to. It isn't all peachy, folks. There's a couple things that I want to talk about before we wrap up the video. This ram ends up being a little bit too long because of the position. The position of the ram is just inside of the tie rod, and that makes it not have quite as long of a stroke. So I'm going to have to take apart the ram and put some sort of a little like sleeve or something in there to make it to where it can't push all the way out and put a whole bunch of extra pressure and side load over here. The good thing is it's a really small ram, so it's not going to be as powerful as a larger diameter ram. So the risk of me hurting something is lower for now, but long term, I'm going to have to do something about that and fix it. Problem number 2, I love these clamps from Barnes 4-Wheel Drive. This is a great clamp, but whenever I take the pin out of the front of this radius arm in order to make it flex more, if I am flexed in a way and this is turned in a way that this rubs into the top of the radius arm. So I might just switch here, I'll show you, I'm talking about the pin. I might just play around with moving the pin to the other side. I don't see a reason why that wouldn't work. So if I put the bolt in the front here and then this removable pin over there, then that means the radius arm that's going to have the most travel is going to be over there, and I don't think that I'll have an issue with that hitting here. The last and final, I'm obviously very tired. The final thought that I have with this power steering system is that this reservoir is way too small for what we're asking out of it. We really need something bigger. In fact, if any of you know of like a really good bolt-in replacement that'll fit the Land Cruiser 80 series, let me know. If not, I'll just TIG up something, or who knows, I might buy a universal PSE or something like that. But let me know in the comments if you know of a really good solution for that. Also, if you're considering doing this, do what I did, replace every single hose and put a cooler in. I like to use transmission coolers for power steering coolers. There's a bunch of different sizes that you can buy. So I get like a medium or a small transmission cooler, because a lot of times the power steering coolers that you buy that are made for power steering are just a little bit too small, in my opinion. So add a cooler. If you can find one, add a filter. So I've got a magnetic filter down there, and that's it. Other than that, the thing works. I just need to polish out the finer details and get it ready for the big trip that I have planned for this at the end of the month. Huge thanks to all of you that voted for this thing to go to Ultimate Adventure. I really appreciate it. I think that we put together a cool truck. Thank you, ONX Off-Road, for putting this whole thing together. To be super clear, at this point, the contest and all you can continue to vote, but the challenge portion of it that we did in Moab and Colorado is already over. So now I own this thing. So I'm going to continue to build it the way I want to, and I really like the direction we're going. I think that as we continue to add parts and we continue to fine tune, this is going to be a really rad truck. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.